Sometimes the night was beautiful.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's through this whole process, it's been very humbling just seeing all the support that we get and just how excited people are, all the prayers, and thank you again very much. While a lot of you know, we just spent our first out of 5 years in language school in Costa Rica, and so it was actually our first year on the field, so we're kind of like missionaries now. And Jennifer has become the Jeff Foxworthy of missionaries. So it's not a redneck, but it's a missionary. So I'm going to let her start off here with.
Well, these are just little snippets of when you're a missionary or when you've lived outside the United States. Okay, so you know you're a missionary when you return to the United States and you're in the airport and you use the restroom and you think, wow, that's a lot of water in the toilet. You know you're a missionary when you find it really difficult to put toilet paper in the toilet. You know you're a missionary or living in a tropical environment when you are really happy to have geckos in your house because they eat the roaches. You know that you have lived outside the United States because when you return home and you've been home for 9 weeks and you gain 11 pounds. And that was me, not him. Okay. You know you're a missionary when you're walking down the street in the evening and you are more afraid of roaches being caught in your flip-flop than you are being mugged. You know you're a missionary when you no longer carry a purse, when your nickname is Gringo, when you become completely illiterate, when traveling to church takes 3 hours on some days, when church services take 2 to 3 hours, and that's normal. You know you're a missionary when you leave the house at the exact time you're supposed to be somewhere 15 minutes away, and you don't consider yourself late. When filtering water is one of your weekly routines. When you wonder why anybody would watch regular TV when there's Netflix with no commercials. You know you're a missionary when the words basic necessity, luxury, and home have a completely different meaning than it did last year. Sorry.
That was supposed to be funny.
You know you're a missionary when a local says, oh, I've been to Kentucky, do you know so-and-so? Okay, you know you're a missionary when leaky roofs are normal, when your front yard is tiled, and when you feel very vulnerable coming back to the States because there are no bars on your window. You also have a new appreciation for ketchup made in the United States. Peanut butter is a very valuable commodity. And you know you're a missionary when home is everywhere and yet it's nowhere.
Okay. All right, so, and she's very excited about being a missionary, so. She is. You know, you have to, I was just saying before, we just spent, we spent a long time in training. Our farm sold while we were gone, and we rented for this last year in Costa Rica, and everything's very expensive there, so you buy the cheapest of everything because you're only there for a year. You don't hang up pictures where you want to hang things, and so we come back and it's you don't have your own place to stay in, which it's been an absolute blessing, being able to have the vehicles and places to stay. But we're ready to get started. It's been, wow, what'd you do to me? But we're ready to get started. It's time to start life, and this is what we've been working towards. So, and those are just some. I'm sure she's going to add more to that list as time goes by. So, when we first got to Costa Rica, we had no place to stay. So we were there 2 weeks without a home, and we lived with some missionaries with our agency for a week. School was out at this time, so we had a little bit of time to look for a place. And then after a week, there were some other students that left the country for a trip, so we stayed in their place, and while we were there, we started looking around for houses, and there just wasn't anything available. And then our home right here came, it was walked by, somebody drove by and said, hey, there's a place here. It was actually further away from the school than students usually went. It was out of the gringo section, more or less. And but I really believe that God led us to this house. It was truly a blessing. You can tell that we were fortified. But we felt very safe. The only problem would be is if there's an earthquake, you can't really unlock all those gates fast enough to get out. But and we had a few tremors there. When the big blessing about the house was it wasn't in a gringo neighborhood. It was in a Costa Ricans are called ticos, so it's not a degrading thing. So if you hear me say tico, that's what it is, Costa Rican. But we're in a Costa Rican neighborhood, and the neighbors were just exceptional. You got to practice your Spanish. They watched out for us, and I guess we were there for about a week when we had a neighbor come down, and that's Diana and her mom. They came down the street. They're probably they were the poorest family in the area. They had 3 generations living in like a little 2-bedroom, really small little house. But they came down to our house and knocked on the gate, and they wanted to clean for us. And some of you might have heard the story, but there was really no telling them no. And they just kind of came in, and they were there for 8 hours, and they were cleaning the walls and scrubbing and working so hard, and we still had no idea what we was going to owe them. So I was kind of a little anxious, and so I told Jennifer, I said, we need to make something for them to eat. So she fixed the dessert. They finished. They sat down at the table. We're eating, and finally I said, well, how much do we owe you? And they looked a little surprised. Diana, she said no. They looked at Jennifer and said, we see Christ in you, and we know you're here to serve Christ, so we want to serve you. So they their plan was to clean our house for the entire year that we were there for free. So again, I just believe God led us to that house. Our church, our school. This is ELA, the Language Institute in Costa Rica. ELA is supposedly the premier Spanish school in the world. All mission agencies around the world that send their missionaries to Spanish-speaking countries send them here. So we were in school with people from Ireland and just different areas around the world, and it was a really great experience just being around all these different other agencies. And this is the school where Matthew and Catherine attended. It's on the same compound as the school. So Matthew and Catherine attended school there. Daniel has finished high school a year early, so he went to school with us at the language school at Eli, and he was really one of the younger person. There was another younger one there, but usually it's older people like us, or people went to the mission field. So anyhow, we did. Like I said, it was the school celebrated its 75th anniversary while we were there. And a lot of you already know this, but at the end they give an exam, echo exam, and it's written, an oral exam, and he's shaking his head, no. But Daniel scored the highest score in the school history, so he did well. And I keep telling everybody, too, that's really neat and all, unless you're trying to learn the same language, and it's a little rough, but... And then Matthew and Catherine also, like I said, they had regular school here, but they had the Spanish classes during the day also. And Matthew's flying with the language. Catherine knows a lot. She's just kind of shy with it. And again, this is a very pretty compound on the inside. This is a look down from the top. Our classes to the right and left. And my class, I'm sorry, but where am I? Was at the end of a lot of you know we spent time in the hospital, so when I got out on the last try, I wanted to really push it a little harder. And so I requested a teacher that nobody wanted her. She was kind of mean looking at least, and she just gave that off that impression, so nobody wanted her. So I really tried to get her, and I did. And so that last try, every Wednesday I had to do an hour-long talk on current events. On Friday I had to do an hour-long Bible study every Friday for the whole trimester, and it was very helpful. It was it's very, like I said, it's very humbling when you like she said, when you're illiterate, but it was, you learn a lot, and she became, you know, a really good friend. It was hard leaving the teachers, but she was awesome. She wasn't quite like what everybody said. Okay, when we our second try there, all these people here are serving in Peru. They were, everyone was from a different mission agency, different denominations. There's some that were Mennonites, just from all over the world, and they're serving in different areas. Two of them are in Lima, one's in the jungle close to Brazil. None of us are close to each other, but it's kind of neat because we have this connection with them, and we'll stay in contact with them. And friends of Catherine there too. Our Saturday routine was, one of them was going to the feria, which is where we bought all of our fruits and vegetables. And so we walked to the feria each Saturday. And this was one of our walk. This is our street right here. And you can see Jennifer carrying her bag for fruits and vegetables, and I usually pulled the cart behind me. But we had, this is the longest we ever went without a pet. And we really missed having a dog. I've never gone a year in my life without a dog. And so there are dogs all over behind fences and stuff, and all the Ticos or Costa Ricans are afraid of them. But we would just go right up to them, and they'd look us in the face. So they became our dogs on our route, walking around. And we were very sad when they would move and the dog was no longer there. And then the guards, they had guards on all the streets. They had these little booths. And one day I was talking to the guard, and I found he thought that we were from Canada. And I was like, "Why would you think we're from Canada?" And he said, "Because you stop and talk to us." And so that was, it's kind of sad. And this was on the streets. This is literally what they will have a pothole big enough to stand in, and it'd be that way for months. One hole was on a very busy street. They brought a desk and set over the hole and set a plant on the desk, and it was that way for months. And they would just have to go around it. This was right outside the school. They stuck part of a tree down in it and put some caution tape on it, and it was that way forever. But that's so we can, you know, all you have to do is go there and you won't complain anymore about the roads here. Okay, this was one of the little geckos. We lived with, like Jennifer said, we lived with geckos and roaches, and it's not that you're not clean. There's no way of keeping them out. When you walk on the streets at night, I mean, it's hard to dodge them. So it's just you hear crunches. It's just, yeah, it was pretty rough. You're all done eating, right? So, but so the geckos, like she said, they would eat the roaches. But Catherine absolutely loved these geckos, and she would catch them. And I remember we didn't have an oven. We went a year without an oven, but we had a gas stove top, and we had the frying pan on there going. And this little gecko runs underneath the frying pan, the fire's going, And Catherine, all she just started screaming, "Save the gecko, save the gecko." She didn't care about the food, and he was fine. But this was what they do to the roaches. This, I thought you might like that. This was in Daniel's bedroom. I'll move on.
And then the deep fry.
Yeah. Then we go to the kitchen. But you know, it's like I said, we could get along with them, but they didn't get along with each other. I don't understand. I was going to say, another time we heard a scream, a horrible scream come out of the kitchen. And Jennifer, like we all just sat there, and it's like, oh, she's screaming. Jennifer gets up, or Catherine gets up and walks in the kitchen and goes, "What's wrong?" And there's a roach in that drawer. It just jumped out. It had teeth this big. I was like, so Catherine opens the drawer, moves there, and she said, "It's gone," and closes the drawer and goes back and sits down. So, very funny. So we spent quite a long time looking for a church. We went to at least a dozen different churches. And I think the first one we went to, I had a heart attack because the guy beside me, just out of nowhere, had to want a curly ram's horn thing and blew it in my ear. And I was like, what in the world are you doing? But we went to many churches, and when we found our home church there, again, God just blessed us. It was awesome. We felt kind of like we were home. It became a church family. And this was the pastor's father, Don Miguel. This is what you all ate tonight. This is what we were doing right there every Saturday. After we did the feria, we'd go here and fix some food for the kids in Verbena. It's a very poor barrio in Peru, or Costa Rica. I don't know if any of you all know, but Matthew broke his wrist while we were there too. So I wasn't the only one spending time in the hospital. This is the barrio Verbena. It's actually the poorest and actually most dangerous area in Costa Rica. But we felt very safe there. It was a great place to go to practice Spanish with the kids. They would just line up they'd have to bring their own bowls or plates with them to be served. And we started saving some bowls from the Chinese restaurant, what was up from us, that they put their carryouts in, so these plastic bowls, because sometimes the kids didn't have any bowls with them and they wouldn't get fed. So one day I saw these three brothers. They didn't have a bowl with them, and I guess they were this big going down. And I walked over and asked them if they had a plate. They said no, and I said, why not? And they said because their dad left. The mother had already left, and so now the father left, so they're on their own. And so they just came there and was watching everybody. So actually, I didn't have any bowls that day. We had Frisbees that we were using, so we turned them upside down and made them plates for them. But very heartwarming. Oh yeah, if we give them something like the Frisbee to eat out of, or they made sure they brought it back to you, and it was clean, spotless. It was amazing. And they were trying to help Matthew with his looks, but they said it wasn't possible. Okay. Technical difficulty there. All right. This was a young girl a lot of you might have heard about too. We had her newsletter, Priscilla. She was in the barrio there. We were doing the rounds, walking through, and we had a nurse with us, and they would look at people every now and then. And so they looked at her mouth. Her tongue was black fuzz. Black fuzz. So she asked Jennifer, since Jennifer's in the dental field, to look at her, and it was some type of fungus. So Jennifer asked her if she brushed, and she did not know what she was talking about. So we showed her, she had never, 10 years old, never in her life seen a toothbrush before. And so, I don't think we have pictures, but Jennifer went there and was showing her how to use the toothbrush. And we hooked up with a dentist close to the school, and the dentist agreed if Jennifer helped her to work on Priscilla's mouth. They did a lot of fillings, pulled teeth. She charged us very minimal to help get her healthy again, so she's doing really good. Then she had a birthday, and so she invited Catherine to her birthday party. And we were going to go. It was in the evening, and the pastor at our church said, "You can't go there. It's very dangerous, and you're going in the evening." They literally lived in the center of the barrio. And so then we said, well, we have to go. We can't not go. And so the pastor decided that they would have the birthday party at the church. That's worked out really well. We had piñatas, and it's a big deal to have to dress up for your birthday. So that was some type of princess dress. Sorry, Belle. And I shouldn't have known that. This is Yvette. For the longest time, and I wrote about her too, I called her the mean lady. We would go on Saturdays to cook, do just what we did in there, shred cabbage, and she didn't like us being there. It was like her kitchen, at the church, and we're gringos coming in for some kind of photo op. And you could tell she didn't like us being there, and I would try to do everything the way she wanted it done. And I'd walk over and I said, ask her, do you want me to wash these plates? And no, every time, no. But I'd go ask her every time. And as time went by, I think she realized that we weren't there for photos. We were there to try to help. And so I walked over and one Saturday, and then it was not a big deal, but it was. I said, you want me to wash these plates? And she just smiled and said, yes. So from then on, it was good. But anyhow, one Sunday we had 44 people baptized at the church, and Yvette was one of them. And she used to live under bushes, and she was a pretty rough lady for a long time. And her little grandson, who was the same age as Catherine, actually got her to come to church there. Yeah. I always say you can't go anywhere and not check out their health care. So I was doing it for the family. I thought a lot of people were asking, so I'm feeling great. I, again, didn't tell Jennifer everything when we got there. When we arrived in Costa Rica, I had a lot of pain already before we left. And I had pus and stuff coming out of my stomach. And so but I knew in Costa Rica, you didn't need a prescription. So I thought once I got there, I'll go to a pharmacy and get antibiotics and start taking, because, I had surgeries beforehand. I thought I just had an infection. And so I did that for quite a while, and it was getting worse and worse, and so I got to tell her. And so I went to the doctor, and again, I get technically 5 hernias, but there was no wall left to my intestines. So they took a 8-inch by 10 or 12-inch screen and wrapped the entire intestines. I had intestines up underneath each rib. And so they pulled them all back together and got it in there. And that went really well. Went home for a couple days, I guess. And I started running 103, 104 fever, and went back. And so that's when I ended up spending 5 weeks in there. So they had good health care. But while I was there, they packed me in ice at night, or in cold wraps, and I kept trying to tell them they don't do this anymore. They had these machines, because I'm always wet, but they would do that, and then time went by, and all of a sudden, nurses would walk into the room. They'd come in their street clothes after hours or whatever, and they would ask me to pray for them, and they'd ask me to pray for her husband, and it was very touching, and. So one day, one of the surgeons came in. There were 8 of them. He came in, and they tried so hard. And he's like, I was going, peace, and hey, and I'm sitting there shivering, fever. And he walks over, and he got mad. And he just said, Timothy, you don't understand. This is serious. And I said, well, I kind of figured that. He said, no, you might die. I said, well, are you going to keep trying? He said, yes. And I said, well, then it'll be okay. And so when I was leaving, they had a couch in the room. I sat on the couch, and he sat next to me, and he wouldn't say anything. Finally, you were the most patient person I ever met. And I wanted him to tell Jennifer that, but no. So anyhow, that was my stay in the hospital. Okay. When it came time to say goodbye in Costa Rica, that was a hard time. Just it was hard here when we left. It'd be hard again. It was hard to come home. It was brutal for Catherine. It took her probably 6 months to adjust and start making friends, and then she had to say bye again. But at least I think she knows that it can happen. And so when we get to Peru, she realizes that. So it was hard saying goodbye. We went to the barrio our last Saturday and telling the kids that we wouldn't be back. And so we told them we weren't going to be there. The barrio you had to walk from the church to get there, and it was a really hard walk, a lot of steep hills, probably a 25, 30-minute walk, I guess. And the next day on Sunday, which was our last Sunday there, a couple of the kids showed up at church. She's laughing at me. But it's hard to think about them sometimes. But anyhow, they showed up, and they actually had their fathers bring them there, which was a big deal. Daniel's looking at me like, will you stop? But Matthew, he talked to him after when we were done getting ready to leave, and he told him he made him promise to keep coming back, and they're still going. Okay, but anyhow, saying goodbye is hard. This one here this is Amka. I'm sorry, I got past this, but this was an international youth group that was in the area where we were staying, and they would have 100, 120, whatever youth there every week. And so Matthew and Daniel, this was, I think, the retreat. Was this the retreat? And but they would go to this weekly, and Daniel started teaching English classes for the Ticos there, for the Costa Ricans there. So it was they made a lot of friends. And this again is our last Sunday at the church. Okay, so then we came back to the States. When we arrived, we headed up to New York, spending Christmas with my mother-in-law. And she's sick, and she still needs your prayers. So we spent Christmas with her, came back, and then we headed to Florida for several weeks for some training with the Mission Society. And this is in Florida. They had 180 missionaries from around the world there, and it was absolutely amazing just to be able to learn from them, not just the classes, but we got there a week early because we had signed up for coaching classes, which I think would be very helpful to us in Peru. It's a way of, it's not like you're a psychologist or anything, but it's a way of helping them come up with their own solutions, especially with Peruvians, because if you help them and it doesn't work out, they hold it against you. So this is a good way for them to come up with their own solutions, and they know they came up with it. If it doesn't work, you're not just totally out in the cold there. And then we had a lot of speakers. We had classes on community development, Jesus and other religions. We talked about Islam and Hindu and how to get Jesus into those religions. Some of the speakers we had. The president of Asbury Seminary was there, spoke, the president of the Mission Society, a lot of great speakers, but the one that really stood out mostly to us was Steve Saint. I don't know if any of you who has read or seen the movie Into the Spear, But he was the child of the missionary that got killed in Ecuador. And so he was there to speak. His story was unbelievable. He's a partial paraplegic now. He had a wreck, and he went through rough times. But the guy, the native, which if you've seen the movie, that speared his dad and killed his dad, is a very dear friend to him now. And so the Lord, he just works. He just works. During the time there, we, like I said, being able to spend time with the other missionaries was incredible time. That's Steve Saint. Sorry, I forgot that. His wife stood next to him because he would start getting a little shaky. She would. The man I'm speaking with here is one of the missionaries there. That's who we spent the first week with. We lived with them in Costa Rica. Awesome family. While we were in Florida also, we had gosh, I don't know how many missionary kids were there, but Matthew and Daniel got to spend time with many of them, many teenagers. Catherine, I don't know if I showed pictures a lot, but she met a lot of the girls that we met when we first started going through the training that are her age, and some that we have met in Peru, and they got to spend the whole time together. It was literally like they'd never separated, like they'd been together the entire time. It was a great time for them, and it was good it's good for them to know, especially Catherine, that it's going to be good. One thing, we had meetings while we were in Florida. We had meetings with the heads of the Mission Society and the field leaders of South America, Peru, and we found out a little bit more. Our first year is going to consist of, a lot of you met Arthur Ivy, but we'll work with Arthur Ivy. He's been there about 14 years now. So we'll work with him for the first year. On Fridays, we have a discipleship group to attend and start working with the Peruvians. On Thursdays, there's a prayer group that will attend, but most of the time they want us to learn the culture, become part of the culture and the community, and practice language. And we'll be working with short-term teams that he has coming in, and learning how to do that also. It's just going to be a lot of education the first year. Our housing is not settled yet, but it will show up. We did it in Costa Rica. We can do it here. One thing is, after we're there a month, if it's okay with Jennifer, there's going to be Arthur has to go into the jungle. Peru has become the #1 producer of cocaine in the world. And all the Colombians, I think, were all pushed across the border. And they've just shot down a plane. So anyhow, where we're going into the jungle is in the center of it. And so, but there's no communication. And only being there a month, we want to make sure that Jennifer feels secure enough being on her own there for a week with the kids. Daniel might be going with us, but when we get there, Catherine and Matthew will be starting school right away. And then now we have our tickets. We have our tickets to leave the country on March the 3rd. So we leave on Monday at noon, high noon. So that's pretty much what's happened in the last year, in a nutshell. And do you have anything else? And I was wondering, I want to take some questions. If you have any questions, and see if we can answer. Yes, ma'am.
I know that the food and things are a little bit different, and I'm sure there's many things from home that you would enjoy receiving. How would you go ahead and provide, and are there particular things that do best in shipping that you guys would enjoy?
Good
That was
question.
a really good question, so you get some chocolate from Costa Rica.
Okay. It's favoritism. That's our sister-in-law. That is a good question. It's going to be not as easy to get things in Peru as it was in Costa Rica. In Peru, going through customs, they pretty much go through everything and they keep what they want. The best thing there's going to be probably at least 6 teams a year, so one team a month, coming every year, maybe some more often. So if there's a team that's coming from a church in Alabama, we'll know the schedule. If you all want to send something, I would tell you who's coming. I would have you ship it to them, and then they could hand deliver it to us. That'd be the easiest thing.
Would that be in your letter? Your monthly letter?
We can put that in our letter, yes.
I need to-
Yeah, it's not in there, but that's, yeah, we need to, on how to get things to us, yes. And it's when we was in the language school, we felt very blessed, very, very blessed. There were missionaries from other agencies that they couldn't believe that people cared about us that much. It was very sad, actually, but people would send stuff to us, and it did mean a lot. What would also mean a lot is emails. We found out people would not send emails because they thought that we were so busy, and it would mean a lot to Jennifer if she got some emails. Just thought I'd throw that in there.
What's your email address?
Yeah, if you need our email address, it would be on our prayer card. School. Good question. Catherine and Matthew are going to start school immediately when we get there, and it's an all 100% Spanish school. When we're at and where we were in Costa Rica, there was a lot of English around, not in Peru. It's Spanish. So prayers lifted up for them would be appreciated. Catherine's very nervous about that. But she'll do fine. She knows a lot. She just doesn't realize it. But Matthew's Matthew, and he'll do just fine. You don't worry about a whole lot. So, question? Yes, ma'am.
And as far as like your clothing or supplies or things, and then what about the people that you're ministering to? Do you have special needs for them as well, or how's the best way to support your efforts?
Can everybody ask question or hear her question? She was wondering about okay, well, we need it, but what about ministry needs? I guess more or less for people there. I guess we'll find out more when we get there about their needs, but I know that we have a whole bunch of Bibles already in Spanish here that we're going to have to find a way there. So that's also have to go through probably teams coming in. They have construction teams, you have medical teams, you have evangelical teams that just come and just sit around parks and talk with people. So it's all different types of teams and needs there.
After we're there a while, we'll just wait and see what doors the Lord opens, because, I mean, there are tons of needs, but you can't do everything. So we really do have to be careful and pray about it and just see where the Lord wants us working.
No, she's right, though, because you can run yourself a little thin and not be effective. We have lists, we've told you guys many times, lists of things that we all would think we'd like to try, but we'll have to pray and see where God leads us and, open doors. We've said all along we want to work with orphanages, and so, the missionary who we're going to be working with, it's been there 14 years, said that's probably the toughest area to get into. With government regulations, they're very strict, but nothing's beyond God. If that's what we're supposed to do, we can do it. But we'll see. Hopefully, doors are open, and we'll see where we're supposed to lead. He told us if that's where God's calling you, he said I'll do my best to help you along that way. But we'll see. Have to let everybody know this is my brother. But he just had both knees replaced just a couple weeks ago, so that's amazing. He had to stand up, but I think. Is that it? All right, thank you guys so much for coming. Oh, I'm sorry, there is another one.
The little boy that got hit by the car coming
Okay, there was a little boy that was hit by a car. Does everybody kind of maybe know that story? But his name was Kendall, and we don't have any pictures of him up there, but he was at church our last Sunday there. He's just running around, and I truly believe it's all prayer. It was all prayer. When we saw him, this church, it's like a garage, so this big giant door opens up, so it's real, like one end of the building just open. And all of a sudden, people start running out. We're standing by the door, and I actually thought there was a fight outside. So I turned and ran out the door real quick, and when I would have rather it been a fight because he got hit like in front of the church and got drugged past this wall. And I could see him out from the tire, and got up there, and everybody trying to hold him still, and everybody immediately started praying over him. And he had a lot of skin grafts. He had mainly, especially in between his legs. I think he straddled the tire, and but he's perfect now. He's running around and he's just having fun. All right, thank you guys.
Sometimes the night was beautiful. Sometimes the sky was so far away.